Hey, so I'm going to need your help today. I'm not 100%, but I'm here for you. So, how far have you gotten in terms of like the MVC labs and the Sinatra? Who would say about 80%? Right, like all the Sinatra MVC stuff. All right. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along. If not, please feel free to ask questions. We are out of Mod 1, and it becomes less about like, hey, just straight Google it, as opposed to like, if you have like some legitimate questions or anything that doesn't make sense or you want to ask about something, this is all extremely brand new. I get that. So now would be like the perfect time to ask, right? I'm not going to reply with like, you should Google it, because that's not helpful at this point, right? So, cool. Bottom line, we're going to talk about these things. The important thing is MVC. Who can try to explain to me what MVC really means and what that is?
Well, MVC stands for Model View Controller, and it is basically a paradigm for web applications. And so, you could have it just on one page, but then it would make your code completely unreadable. So you're separating it out by responsibility. So the models would basically be like the logic back end, the view would be the front end, and then the controller would be the communicator between those two.
The go-between, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, so to sum that up, all right, what do we have here? We have the model, right? And so what's our model? What would you describe that as?
Or Ruby logic? Oh, like what is the model?
Yeah, like what does it do, right? It is the Ruby logic, absolutely.
So it's like the internal files structure of the system that allows objects to be instantiated, has the logic for how the classes are connected.
So you said
like what we did in the first mod project is sort of like the model.
right. So you said like objects to be instantiated, right? So that's really what the model is. But really the way I would define it is the model is what interacts with the database. I'll try to be cool and spell it without looking. That didn't work out. Right? And we've been familiar with this, right? We learned about active record. We talked about models. So what is the controller? Sure.
The controller basically has the sort of connection between the two, so it allows the front end and the back end to be connected. So it allows like what sort of is happening in the back end, like the objects being instantiated, entered into the database, to interact with sort of the front end, say user experience. So like the user makes a new profile on the front end, and that goes through the controller into the back end.
Right. So it's the go-between, right? Have you read about that analogy with the restaurant yet? Is that what it talks about? So like the controller is like the waiter essentially, right? So the view would be like the customer puts in the order, controller goes back, talks to the model or the kitchen, and then comes back and serves up that data, right? So what would you describe the view as?
It's what the person viewing the website is seeing and like what you want to do.
Absolutely. So it's the HTML that gets rendered to form a web page. Did I mess up? Unbelievable. Try to be cool. Right. And that's really kind of what that process is. So if you've seen it a little bit in terms of like what we did for like the labs, but now we're going to break it down and talk about how it relates to that CRUD functionality. So what you should have seen in that rack in the internet lecture is that everything is like a response and request cycle. So you, as the client, will make a request to a server, right? Either Google, Bookface, Twitter, something like that, and then it will serve you back a response. That response will come back in the form of data, usually in HTML, that then gets rendered to your client, which is like the Chrome, Safari, whatever browser you're using, and then it reads the HTML and then it displays a web page based on the CSS, the JavaScript, and the HTML itself, right? So that's really what Sinatra is going to do. for us. It's built on top of Rack. So Rack has like a lot of things where you can match the exact resource, and we saw that, and you can serve up either static or dynamic websites. For CRUD, Sinatra is built on top of it because it allows us to get really quickly into the weeds of like that server response. And you can spin up your server and you can actually start writing code. Rack takes a lot more to set up, and so that's why we've chosen to use Sinatra to kind of start out, right? So what I want you to take away from this is Sinatra's great, Sinatra's important. I just need you to understand MVC. I need you to understand routes, specifically as it relates to REST. And we're going to go into REST here in a little bit. And I need you to understand the controller, right? The controller controls all that data and how it passes data to the view. That's really about it. Please, please, please do not get your head wrapped around the axle with Sinatra. We will very quickly forget about Sinatra. All right, once we get into Rails, Sinatra will be a thing of the past, right? Who likes building all the OO models? Who likes building all the OO stuff in the classes? Did you enjoy doing the select and then the map and then the find? Or do you just like using active record? Who prefers active record? Okay. You'd rather build all of them?
I don't know, I like the little curly braces.
There'll be a lot. So Rails will be like active record, right? Right now we're just trying to understand a lot of the inner workings, and then when we jump to Rails that has a ton of auto magic on top of this, it's good to understand where everything's coming from. Yeah? Cool. So what is RESTful routing? What does REST stand for? Oh, it wasn't in the, okay. Sorry, I thought it was in the README. But so what it is representational state transfer, right? Because this is like how we normally do acronyms, right? We do this. Clowns. All right, so what REST is a convention, right? You will start to hear this a lot. Convention is so important because it allows us to build something so that other people will initially and inherently understand the framework of which we are working in. So that was a lot of words, but in the same way that a car, right? A BMW, a Honda, a Toyota, they're all built basically the same, right? Who here drove a car that's operated by like a joystick? Like you are in the driver's seat like this, like a mechanic, and you are like leaning this way, right? Or you're hitting buttons like a video game. You're like driving your car with a controller. You're driving with the steering wheel, right? Every single car is built with the steering wheel. If you turn it to the left, it'll turn left. You turn to the right, it'll turn right. The gas is on the right and the brake is on the left. And if you know how to drive standard, the clutch is like the super left one, right? That is a convention, so that it doesn't matter what car you learn to drive on. Once you learn how to drive, you can drive any car. Does that make sense? So if we follow convention, then it is very easy to access anyone's data, anyone's API, right? So like, let's take for example, right? We have ESPN, right? Here we have ESPN, the domain, and then we have this resource. We have NBA, right? And under NBA, we have a team, and then under team, we have the name, the state, and then New York Knicks. This is the resource that we're looking for. And it's easy to understand where this is coming from and what you're getting with this resource, right? In the same way that if I wanted to go to, I don't know, like where are the players over here? I haven't been on this website in a long time. But like if I were to go to the Nets, look, you have Brooklyn, then you have Brooklyn Nets. But it's still going to be under NBA and team. This is the way the NBA's API is designed. This is their convention for how they are building out their web application. So anyone that's going to be working with the NBA and their website will automatically know, hey, if I need to change the team's data, first I need to go under the NBA folder. Under team, I'm going to look up the name and then probably their location, followed by the actual team name. I know exactly where to look to modify that data. Like that's the convention that we're doing, right? A lot of Rails, actually almost all of Rails, their backend, their convention will be under something known as REST, right? You guys heard of REST yet? Besides, okay, I should silence that. Please don't all Slack me. That'd be ridiculous. That's really all I kept this here for. Does that make sense? Why that convention exists, how it's useful? Cool, let's get back to the code. And then we're gonna learn how to make an HTML form, right? And then what the actions that we can do with it. So, first thing is normally we go through the app, right, to see how everything is connected. So let's do that, right? We have something under app, right? We have new folders now, right? This new one called adapters. Let's take a look at what it does. It's just a module with the class adapter, and then it connects to the Google Books API, right? Nothing complicated, we did this already. Mike Cheng went over this. It's just gonna initialize with an author. You have your add a reader. It's gonna use REST client, which we've done. It's going to get the author URL, and then it's going to make a new book. And this is what's going to populate our database. Then it runs this really cool method save, right, to make sure it commits it to the database. So we make an instance of book, we pass it in the title, we pass it in like a snippet, which is like a brief description of the book, and then we save it to the database. Any like questions? These private methods basically allow us to get a max of 20, and it sanitizes it in the event there's like spaces or something. Any questions on those? Yeah?
This is just more about how it runs, but if the author sanitizer method is below the initializer, then how does the initializer just gets down there? The code just reads it, gets down there, and it calls the initializer, like it calls that method, even though to initialize it is.
In order to call initialize, you have to call .new. So the class must exist, so the whole file is read. Yeah, great question. Cool. So we have something called application controller, all right, and this inherits from something known as Sinatra base. Have we ever inherited from something else base? What base? Cool, that looks like this, yeah? So if I've ever mentioned to you something called namespacing, right, and it's this, it means that I'm going to be using active records base versus Sinatra's base. So I can have two classes named the same thing, but if I'm using the correct namespace, I know where it's coming from. If I just inherited from class base, where would it be coming from? You'd have no idea, right? So the namespace is important in terms of separation of specific classes that you wish to access. Make sense? Cool. So this is just a pretty simple book class, right? It's got all the active record methods in it. Remember this? This is just going to take everything from my app folder and require it or inherit it. I'm using SQLite 3, and I'm going to be putting it into a development.SQLite file. This migration looks pretty familiar. Any questions on migration? Cool. I've already migrated to save you the time, but this is all that's in the table. My C data should look a little different. I'm calling from Google Books with the namespace adapter. I'm calling new to initialize. I'm passing it this author name, and then now I'm getting all the books. Right? That was the method that was originally created in that in the Google Books adapter, right? Config.ru. Someone want to tell me what this does? Is that you, Johnny?
It's going to stop the server.
Yeah, awesome. It's just going to start the server. It's going to run the application controller. These are all the gems that we use. Rack is pretty simple, and just here's the README. Any questions on like how this app comes together and what I should be seeing from this application? Awesome. You guys are smart. All right, cool. So let's figure out some of these like restful routes, right? Hold on. Cool. So some of the things about CRUD, right? I want to be able to view information, right, on an individual book. What would the route be to look at this one book? What would make sense to you? What kind of request should I make? A get or a post,
Okay.
right? And what do I want to see? I want to see books, right? So it's an individual book, specifically. So what do I need for an individual book? Right, so I'll need the ID, right? What if I want to view all the books? What kind of route should I do? Get or post? Okay, and where am I going? To books? All right. What if I want to make a new book? Oop, 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 oop. Ah. So what's the get or post? Huh? Sure. We can have a post. Where am I posting to?
Oh, I guess we're going through your books and then back to our database.
So I'm posting to something called books. That makes sense? This was a little tricky, right? So let's think about this. I want to create a new book. The first thing I need is what do I pass in to book when I need to create a new book? What kind of information? I need some sort of title. I probably need some sort of author, right? And where would I be getting this information from? Well, if I want to be able to make a new books, right? No longer am I pulling from the API. I want to be able to create a new book as a user, right? You guys remember in like your CLI app, you did a lot of gets.chomp? How would you what's like the gets.chomp equivalent of like in the browser? How would I ask for a user's like input? Yeah, right, I'd ask for some sort of form. So how would I be able to show a form to a user? I need to have a route to a form first, right? So let's get books, right? And what am I trying to make? A new book. So once I get to this new book, then I'm going to be able to submit that form, and that form should go to a post. And that post should then process that data and then create the new book on my back end. And that's how that works. Any questions? Cool. Just kidding. Bloop. What else do we need to do for CRUD? What is CRUD? Have you heard CRUD before?
Create a research, I think, destroy.
Right. So what's the next one?
Destroy?
It's update, right? Destroy is usually last. I know. I'm eager to. So update is a great word. But for here, what we'll use is edit. Right, so we're going to edit an existing book, right? Before we get too into the weeds of this, we have some pretty good routes here. So let's go build those out, right? So what's the first thing we should do in terms of like building routes? Which one of the MVCs will control the routes and the information? The C? Cool. And what do we need to do in here? Let's get, right, to where? Let's make sure everything works first, and let's just get to home, all right? Slash is just very generic. It means like home. There's no actual resource there, all right? So what do we do with get? Once we hit this get route, what do we want to show? What do we want to serve up?
ERB index.
Index is cool, but index I want to save for something else, right? Let's just go home, right? Like ET. Cool. So before I do anything else, before I do anything else, what should I do? Yes, I'd like to test, absolutely. All right, yeah, I need to start the server. Oh wow, that was really angry. Sorry, caps lock was on. Cool. So let's do that. Localhost. Oh, we on 9393? Okay. So home doesn't work. Why? Well,
You never made a view from home.
yes, I never made a view for home. So what's it saying here? We have to be more specific about like how we understand things, right? So let's make a view for home. Right? That's what this error message is saying. It's saying that in NYC Web 0827 and 14 app controllers in views there's no home file. Right? So let's make one. In views. Oop. Home dot what? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the old convention. I'm sorry if you can't see it. Right? This is the old convention. It's letting you know that there's going to be HTML in this ERB. ERB just stands for embedded Ruby. That means you're going to be literally writing Ruby code inside HTML. The new convention now is just straight ERB. Cool? So what do we want to put in here? Huh? Cool. The cool thing about the templating and what Sinatra will do is it will pre-build the template for you. So you can literally put welcome home. See what happens. Why is it doing this? I think it's because the views have not been properly set in the application controller, and I'll explain what that is in a little bit. I think I have to set views into app views. There we go. So let me explain a little bit what's going on here. In application controller, it inherits from something called Sinatra base. Right now, I'm going to be building out views for books. Right now, I'm building everything in the application controller. As I refactor later, right now I just want to be able to get through the lesson. I want to be able to have something called book controller that controls all the logic and the views for my book. So application controller, generally speaking, doesn't have any views because this is my whole application, right? I'm going to at some point have other models that I want to register and be able to view and control like squirrels, nests, and trees. But for right now, it's just books. But for the purposes of just learning, I'm going to throw everything in the application controller, and I have to be able to manually hard code where these views are coming from my application controller. It should be automatic once I make a book controller, but for the purposes of the lesson, I'm just going to stay here, and I'm going to show you the rest of the CRUD. Does that sound like a plan? All right. So going back, all right, you can, in fact, if you wanted to like wrap these in tags, like a p tag or something, you can be like home sun, and it should change, right? Any questions? So that, because I don't actually add any resource here, there's nothing, this is technically home. All right, the plain slash, that's what get slash is. So, boop, boop, boop. Let's make another route, right? What's the other route we talked about? Let's say I want to show all the books. What was the route? All right, we're just going to, so this right here, it will be painful for some of you. I know it was for me. I always forget this initial slash, and it will break your code. So just be wary of it, yeah? Also, these do blocks. I forget them all the time. So I want to be able to what? Show all my books. So we want to ERB index, right? That's like, the index is just the default for where all my original data is going to live for this particular object. Like in the books controller, index will show all the books. In my authors controller, index will show all my authors, right? So let me do that, right? So I need some sort of file called index. Boop, boop, boop. And what do I want to show in here? Yeah, but first I want to make sure I'm hitting the right route, right? So I'm just going to put index page. Sun. So how would I get there? Right? The routes just match. So now that I know I'm definitely hitting it, and I didn't get some weird thing like Sinatra doesn't know this ditty. Have you seen that yet? Here, I'll show you. Boo. Right? It's wild. Like this is great. It literally tells you what route you're hitting, and then it gives you like an example. So I'm hitting books. Yeah. So that's how I know I'm like actually hitting it. This is just my test. So if I want to show all the books, how would I do that?
I want to say books at all.
Right here?
Maybe in a method.
Books.all, like this. Mike,
Could you throw in those ERB tags?
probably.
Where it's caret, percentage, equal.
You mean this?
Yeah.
I bet you want to know how to do that, don't you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, of course, right?
And then you would just do books at all.
Just do this, books.all.
That should work.
On each.
Well, I think, can I try?
Talk to me, Johnny.
I don't think you need the equal sign, you're gonna run the code, right? You don't need the equal sign.
Cool.
That's what's a scripting tag, right? You want to use the scripting tag to run the iteration.
Mhm.
And then when you want to display, you want to use the substitution tag, right?
Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. And then what? A little bit of this. Oh yeah, you're right. Ugh. Boop. Can I just drop the end like this?
No, you have to use the
Be on the other side.
scripting tag.
Yeah, is this okay?
I think this needs to be on the left side of the book.
Yeah,
The what now?
the two needs to be next to each.
The do needs to be next to each? Oh, you're right. Oh man, that was bad. Oh, little ice cream cone. I call them ice cream cones. So if you ever hear me refer to them, instead of carrots, I call these ice cream cones. I have a child's imagination. I'm sorry. Cool. So let's see if it worked. Yeah. Whoop. Nice. So this is something that is known as the view talking directly to the model, right? And as we learned, who should be talking to the model? Should the customer go directly to the kitchen and tell them that, hey, I want this double cheeseburger, medium rare, extra cheese, extra burger? Or should it be like coming through the waiter, the controller, right? So how do we make that happen? Well, this is the controller, right? We can always do book.all over here, right? We can make an instance variable called books equal book.all. That way, inside of index, instance variables have a very unique capability where they can get passed from the controller, the waiter, the garçon, to the index, right? So instead of book.all, we can do at books.all. And let's see if that works. Little refresh action. Actually, you probably couldn't see that, so let's get rid of this. And it still works. This is the way we should be passing data through the instance variable, because the controller is the one that is going to control that data and then pass it in the instance variable to the index. Alex first and then Johnny. Yes?
I just have a question with, in terms of, using the controller to have the two sets talk to each other. Wouldn't you be putting the book.all that each do within the controller instead of the, why would you have it in the index instead of the controller?
So why would I have it in the index instead of the
Like
controller?
the actual ERB file instead of, would be the block page, the whole, like,
Oh, the whole like iteration?
Yeah.
All right. So there are times in your view that you want to be able to control what it is that you render based on the data that you get from the controller. So you would in fact do this, right? So this is the logic here that you're going to show, right? If you wanted to, you can just, you can probably throw in a break tag. Break is self-closing or no?
You're just using then the controller to get the data and then use the index to manipulate it, right? Essentially, like the way you should view it the way you want.
Ooh. Sorry.
You like that? You like that?
That's much better.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyways, yeah, so this is what and how I want everything displayed inside my view page. But my data, the actual touching of the database, should be through the controller to the model. And then the controller passes the instance variable over to the view. Johnny, you had a question?
Wait, I thought it's, I was curious, go back to
The,
you say at port.
yep.
Isn't it, can you use a double that?
You want a class variable?
It's a class variable, right? Is it-
Here, for the MVC architecture, we're just going to use instances, right? We'll never use class variables.
Now, one question, you already have double in that
Yeah.
instance, why you have to have another double in the,
Should it just be books.each?
yeah,
There's a few.
yeah, the same thing, I mean, you have another.
Oh, yeah, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, good shout. Did not see that. Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Good, good. I didn't even catch it. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so that's how we should be passing data. Does that make sense so far? Cool. So what's the next restful route / CRUD action? How about we try to get one individual book, right? All the details of that. Them deets though. How would we do that? Where would we go? And what happens here? Do I have mine? I think I have.
Filling all the books and then you can go to the next one.
All right. So what does the /ID mean? Do I just put in the, like this? No. What does it mean, Sebastian?
That you're, I guess if you're going to call the ID from the table that's storing all the book information.
Mm-hmm. But what does ID mean here, the colon ID? That's definitely what's going to happen.
Not sure.
Does anyone know? Mar?
Is it gonna run a query with the ID number and try to find it?
Yes. So this ID, this colon ID, is just like interpolation that I'm going to receive any kind of parameter, right? Some like pseudo splat operator, Johnny, where it doesn't matter what I put in, that is now going to be named the ID value within my parameters. So I can put in 8, right? And what's going to happen? It's going to hang here. So what do I do now? How did I hit the binding? Right? Let's see if I hit the binding. Now I'm in this binding here. So can I just call ID? What do I need? What is this? It's just a symbol. So what did I just pass in to my URL? I passed in something called parameters, right? The ID will take as a parameter, right? So I have what? Have you seen this?
Request
Params? So what do params come through as? Just comes in as a hash. So that colon ID sets my key, and whatever value I put in to that URL will now become that value for my param. So I can put in params, and I can do ID, and I will get 8. Just regular key value.
Is this just an easier version of the wrap version of this that you're saying?
This is the much easier version of the rack version, yeah. Yeah? So naturally, right, if this is going to be interpolated and I can't always hard code this value, how would I get this book here? What would this book be? What? If I know the ID, how would I be able to find that particular book? Book. Find, right? With the ID, and what's the ID? You don't know, but it will always come in as params, right? So now I will always be able to get this book because here, right, I can do book.find with params ID.
Params an instance variable for
Oops.
application controller?
I spell something wrong? Oh, I don't have actually book ID 8. I don't think I have I don't think I have that many books. Let's find out. Huh? 28. What the joke?
Isn't it find by?
Yeah.
You can use find by.
I thought find takes the ID.
Yeah, I'll play your game. Weird. Let's see. Oh, I see. I like seeded this data a few times. So the first instance of my database is ID 20. It's not like 1 through 28. It's like 21 through like 49. Something like that. That's why. That makes sense. Cool.
Is params an instance variable for the instance of application controller?
No, params are a hash that's passed from Sinatra every time a request is sent, right? It's passed back and forth. So whenever you make a request, specifically like a post or something, it will send you params. Okay? Cool, cool, cool. So this code makes sense? So let's try it, right? I know I have like probably like 31. Okay, so it didn't break, but why is it empty? Because I never gave it like a view to look at, right? So it knows the route, but there's no view there. Interesting. So let's show it a view. Let's serve it up. What do we want to show? Show, right? So this is index, right? Index is referring to all of my books. If I wanted to see one particular one, I'm going to show off all the details of one. So let me make that show. So how can I make sure I'm hitting the right one? What do I have here now? What do I have? I have at book. Just kidding, at book. And what else do I have? I have the title, right? Let me throw in a break real quick. And then, there's a way to get rid of this thing. There we go. Say again?
She just said you can get out of it with escape.
No, here you go.
I know.
I have all these like weird shortcuts here, so it takes me a little bit. Cool, and then I have, what? Snippet. All right. I can do something wild, like this is book with blah, with an ID of, and then what? I can do something cool, like at book.id. Is that gonna work? I don't know, let's try it. Let's just get crazy. Whoa. Right? So apparently it's some book called Irrational Season, and this is a short snippet of it.
So
Oh my god, that book looks deep. Say again? I guess so. I don't know. I guess I'm not as well read as I thought. Did it all make sense? Any questions? What are your questions, rather? That's a better question. Mar.
The symbol, so we don't have to use HTML tags within the ERB.
You do not have to, but you will see that as you build more complex web applications, You probably don't want this super generic font like on a white background. So you will start to add in HTML tags because of the specific way you want to style the web page. But factually speaking, you do not have to. This is me just like trying to demonstrate a lesson to you. I would probably wrap this in a p tag. You know, great question. Yes, Chris.
What would be the differentiation between using an instance and a class variable? Like, if we use instance variables by convention, but functionally speaking, the whole web app is one instance of the application type, right? So
Yes.
there's a functional difference between class or instance variables.
So the functional difference is that the class would have access to them, right? But here we're talking about what? If I were to do class variables, I'd be referring to the application controller here. And that's not, in fact, what I'm trying to be referring to. All right, so all of these routes are just going to basically serve up my HTML, and it's going to be serving up an instance of like a route that I'm hitting. I wouldn't be serving up anything from the application controller directly as a controller. Does that make sense? Because the class variable will refer to the class.
So like each new page, so get slash is one instance, get books is another instance, get books ID is each instance based on ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's going to serve up the HTML for that method. These are just methods. Yeah. Great question. Cool. All right. So what's the next one? What do we want to do next with the drunken sailor? Before we edit, we should probably be able to make one, right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So what did we say we needed to do in order to make a new one, a new books? Cool. Right? And what happens here? Do we need anything here?
Let's get a form.
Yes. So we should probably just, for easy sake, we should just render the form, right? Because here we're not actually doing anything. All we're doing is serving up the form so that the user can give us the params that we need to make the new book. Yeah? So let's check it out. Views, file, form. Cool. So how do I make a new form?
We just need an author and title, right? So
Mm-hmm.
probably a getter method for each of those.
Cool.
Each author.
Yes. So I know you love shortcuts, right? If I just type in like HTML and press tab, I get my whole HTML block, right? If you download the HTML or like Ruby or Rails snippets, you can do form and hit tab. It'll build out a basic form template for you. All right, you can do it with anything in here, like label. Ah, that was bad. Or you can do input. Questions on that? All right, cool. So what does label take? Forgot all the sweet HTML. So this is like a title, right? And then here we have just like the title, right? As you were saying. Ooh, I'm glad I spelled that wrong that way versus the other way. Thank you for like the small laugh. Cool, right? So what is name here, and what is value?
So, isn't the value just the book title? Book's title attribute.
Is the value what appears in the form?
So I'll show you, right? I'm just trying to get you to think a little bit about like what these things do and how they affect ultimately what's happening coming across like the end there. So this last one, right, is the form always needs to be able to be submitted somehow, right? So you have like your two inputs for your title and your snippet, and then they need to be submitted. Right now for name, we can just put nothing, right? And the value is what comes up on the actual screen, right? So here we can put create that book, right? Cool. So how do I get there? How do I get to this new books form?
Form.
Slash new, right? Not slash form, slash new, because that's the route. Slash new is going to give me the correct route that's going to hit that method, slash books new, and then that's going to render the ERB of the form. Right? Just kidding. What is this? Couldn't find book with an ID of new.
Did you not save?
What is this? Application controller. Oh, I get it now. Okay. This is interesting. This is an interesting error. Why did it go couldn't find a book with an ID of new?
It thought that you were looking for that in the background there.
You have to switch the order.
Yes, I have to switch the order. The reason is because you see this method, right? Ruby is going to run down and it's going to stop at the first method that it hits where it makes sense. So this colon ID is what? Remember I told you it's just like an interpreted, it's an interpreted value. So it doesn't have to be a number necessarily. It just thinks that I went to book/ID and that params that I'm putting in is literally the word, the string new. I actually wanted to hit here. So in order for me to hit it first, I just slide it up. It's a little hacky, but you won't run into that error in Rails, right? It's like one of the limitations of Sinatra. Raise your hand if that made sense, because that was like a little bit like weird. Cool, awesome. So smart, so smart. Cool, look at that. Get that book, son. Right? So what's the title? Wow, I read a lot of very interesting books. So let's make one, right? What's the book title?
100 Years War, Volume 1.
I'm sorry, what? No, I just didn't hear you.
You said 100 Years War, Volume 6.
100 Years War, Volume 6, right? Very good.
So it's only going up to 5, guys, because nobody listened to the last time.
No. Very, very good book, right? Not at all about trees. Cool. So what happens when I create that book? Let's check the inspector, right? Cool. What do we have here? We have the body. We have this form. So look, remember, form for title, right? And then here is where I actually put in the namespace, right? This is the title. See this change up here? Here's snippet. Of course, this is like the desk, right? The description. So what is this? What if I change something for value? What is value going to be? This is where you put default parameters, right? But what is like value going to change here? Yeah. What goes in the input? Me fail English? That's impossible. This is what really happens. Yeah. Huh. God damn it. It should be in there. Here. Let's change this value real quick. Come here. Come here, you. Show me the money. There it is. So boom, boom. It doesn't change after you like type in parameters, apparently. Must be an HTML5 thing. Does that make sense? Like what the values are? Cool. So where is this gonna take me if I hit create that book?
Nowhere, because you have to set it up.
Doesn't the page just end up refreshing and turn up blank again?
Huh?
Like when you hit this in the cut for the viewer, it just like it refreshes and you brings it back to the title snippet.
Right in the beginning, form, right? I have no class here because I'm not classy, but the action is actually the route and method is post. So where is it going to take me? It's going to post to something called index.html, right? Is that where we want to go? Where do we want to go?
Into the class.
Well, we probably want, what? What's that second half of this? Books? Oh man, I made that, just made that mistake. Right? When we hit post books, what do we want to do? This is where we want to make that new book, right? Let's check it. Let's check the pry. Right? Let's change the form. Instead of index, we want to post to books. Is that cool? So if I refresh, where's my form going? Action, books, post. So if I made some like really good book, right? That's me being creative. And I hit create that book, what happens? It hangs here. It just hangs. You see, I'm like, it's waiting for local host, it's just hanging. Very likely, if it's hanging, I probably hit the pry. So what came through? What the? Oh, I hate this error. Oh. Hold on. Brooke, you know how to get out of this? I'm in that weird bug. I'm in that really weird bug. Huh? I'm in this weird bug. Alright, this is gonna happen to you. Oh no. Stop the madness.
Open a new tab and go to activity monitor and shut down.
Huh?
Open a new tab and go to activity monitor and shut down review.
Control D.
Yeah, hold on. Was it 14? This is like intro. No, I just meant like the lesson. So this would sometimes this happens, right? When you're in the pry.
Are you still running it on the browser?
Yeah, I'm still running in the browser. Sometimes when you run like shotgun, when you hit your pry, half your keys are like not gonna work properly. Do you know what I'm talking about, Brooke?
Yes.
Yeah, like half your keys don't work.
You're gonna have to exit out of the browser. Like immediately do it activity monitor and shut it down. Otherwise, if you try to run shotgun again, it's gonna think you are.
Yeah, all right. I need to find this thing. What is it? PS aux grep. Sinatra.
You're doing it well developed.
Oh, what's like the new cool way?
No, that's the cool way. I do it like those.
This is the cool way. Yeah, this is like how developers. All right, so I'll give you like a brief tangent on this, right? So what is PS aux? It basically runs all the servers that you have, and what grep. Do you know what grep does? It searches recursively for you, and then I looked for something called Sinatra. So these are what are known are like PIDs, and these are all the servers that are running for me. So it literally found this when I was like running this, ironically. So I'm gonna kill all these servers here. Kill -9 and then the ID, right? 27954. Give me that. Gone. Cool. Clown. Nice. All right. If this ever happens to you, I will send this out. I will show you the instructions on how to do it. This also will happen if you're running your server, and instead of like exiting out of the server with Control or Command C, if you're on like a Windows or a Mac, you're all Macs. If you don't exit properly and shut the server down, and you just close the tab, the server will be running in the background forever, even if you shut your computer down and turn it back on. So you'll actually have to go into like all the servers that you're running and then manually find it and kill that server. This is like really high level like programmer developer stuff, but I think there's a faster way that like Flatiron School came up with. This is like how developers find like regular things, but there's like something specific to Sinatra that you can run. I'm not cool like that. I don't know. I'm a bit old. All right. So let's go to books new, yeah? Cool. Cool. All right, just exactly where I was. Are you good? I lose you? All right. Yeah?
Params.
Huh? All right, sorry. So, what came through? Man, again? Stop the madness. Oh. This is frustrating. Remember how I told you all your demos are going to go really well? Yeah. All right, let's do this. Just going to go to a different directory. You didn't miss much, don't worry. 14, right? Cool, let's do this. Clowns, cool. Real book, real description. Don't do me dirty like this. Cheers.
I'm sorry.
I was also excited. All right, sorry about that. So params, right? This is what came through on the other end. The parameters that were submitted in here. Notice how it says title, and notice how it says snippet. This looks like what? Sinatra indifferent hash. What does that mean? What would this be indifferent to? Let's check. Ready? What does this look like? What kind of value? Right? But what kind of data structure? Right? Would this work? What about this? If I pass in this, a symbol. Yeah. This is what it's indifferent to. So when you saw me make those mistakes earlier when I was building the hash up in like Ruby land, it's because I was like used to this. That's my bad. So, does this make sense? Right? So how did I get the title to be real book and snippet to be the real description? Yes, it's this field right here, right? That's what this name becomes. So if I wanted to put like banana phone. Cool. Actually, I gotta refresh this. Oh, I can't. Hold on, I'm in this.
Is this saved already into your database, or is this all happening without sort of like an active record save?
It has not saved yet, and I'll explain, right? So here, if I were to change this snippet to banana phone, whatever it is, right? And then I were to put T is for title, right? And this is the ring, banana phone. Remember that song?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, no.
Oh, thanks. All right. Oh, no! Damn it. Oh, today of all days. All days. All right, I'm going to kill this server. I'm going to kill all of them. Here we go. What do we have? 27763? You're done. You're done. Oh, what the? Okay, they're all done. None of them are running here. Why is this terminal so jacked up? Why is this terminal so jacked up? Sorry. Now you know my folder structure. Ridiculous.
You.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Thank you. Okay, you see this? If you add this extra slash, it will break you. Did you see that? Like if you just do new slash, it thinks there's an additional resource and it just won't find it. It's not smart enough. All right? So we go to new. Come on. Come on. Come one. right? Boom, boom. This is like when you get really frustrated and you start making really bad test data. Cool. So look, this is where it's coming from, right? The value. That's how I can know how the value is getting passed in properly on my params. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So this just looks like what? It's a hash. So if that's a hash, I can easily just go back to my controller and I can do something like book.create, and I can just pass in params, the hash, and it'll make it. Right? Remember metaprogramming? You just pass in a hash as an argument for the DFI. All right, cool. And have to be today. Sorry. Cool. What's next? All right. So that's how you make a new book, essentially.
So we should be able to like do that and go to the books.
Index and see it.
And see it.
Yeah. You want to do that?
Sure.
Cool. All right. Let's get out of here. All right. So let's make a book. Jordan, you want to make a book? Show me. What book do you want to make? Jordan is the best. All right. And who wrote that? Your boy. Cool. Interesting. So when I hit it, it brings me back to like this /books, but it was the post version. So that's why nothing comes up, right? But if I actually were to make the request again, I'm doing the get version. Does that make sense? So I should probably be able to see that book. Oh, there it is. Boop. There you are. Look at that. Bam. Bam. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's my bad. I'm so sorry.
So if you wanted to show like a message, a confirmation message, would you just put an ERB after the info?
I would do something called flash messaging, and I'm going to get into that much later when we get into Rails.
So you wouldn't mess with the empty post page?
No, I would not mess with the empty post page. No. Yeah. So what I would do, in fact, is right after this, I would redirect right back to books.
And it would know that that's the get version.
The redirect will send a new request, so this would be a get request to books. Very good. Good question. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up real quick with the edit function, because I'm just going to talk you through delete. And so like I don't want to bore you guys, and then you'll get after it, right? Cool. So what would be the edit function? What do we talk about for edit? All right. What do we want to do? First thing we want to do is what? We want some sort of get to see the form, right? So we want to go to books, right? And what do we want to do? Does this book exist already? We probably want to find it by the ID, and then what do we want to do with it? We want to edit it. Does that make sense? Or no? Any questions so far? Yeah? And then from here, what do we want to do? Huh? Yeah, find the mouse first, right? What do you want to do? Some sort of post, right? To what? With that ID, that specific ID. Notice how I have to have the ID here because I'm doing something with that specific book, which is why I didn't want to do it when I was making the new book. All right? I'm like reserving that route for it later. Okay? We talked about what edits are. Is this a post request? Is this actually a post request? All right. So, okay. Bloop. Let's see. I showed you this website, right? Where was it? References and guides. HTTP. All the way on the bottom, right? We have request methods. So which ones would it be? What is patch and put? Yeah, they're the update methods, right? So is that what we want to do here? We want to post, or do we want to patch it? Cool.
I forgot, is patch the one where you update assuming patch then is where you just update one single part of the, no, patch is where you edit an entire row. Right?
Does anyone know? What's the difference between put and patch?
Patch is one specific.
Right, patch is one specific.
Cool, right? So let's do it. We're doing get to what? Books with an ID of edit. And what do we want to do here? Okay, that's why I didn't do that for me. I always forget this. This will trip you up. What do you want to do? Right? First we want to get the book, right? Now how do we do it? Right? We want the params of the ID. And now what? Let's render that form, yeah? So like some sort of edit form. Cool, let's do it. So this edit form, right, is going to look awfully like this new form, except for a couple key differences, right? Instead of post, we want what? Okay, that's not what we want. That's not what we want at all, right? And what else? We could probably interpolate the value here, right? What, at book.title? Because it exists already, right? To make a better user experience here. So at book.snippet. And what do we get? Is this where we want to go? Do we want to go to patch/books? What do we want to do? Right? Like this? Colon ID? Who thinks that's correct? Okay. I would say it's probably the book ID. Cool. So, but just so we're absolutely sure we're not on the new page, this is not the new page, right? Slick, like that? Cool. So how do we get here? Ugh. How do we get here?
Edit.
Just edit?
31/edit.
Love that. Oops. Got hasty with it. Na. Cool. See, look, I interpolated it what it is already, because it makes for a good user experience, right? Like if you're going to edit something, you probably want it pre-populated what it is already. So let's change this to, yeah, book was whack, right? So what's going to happen when I hit create that book? I need to hit that patch, right? And what's the patch route? Nice. A little do action, a little end action. Oops. Oop. And what do we want to do here? We want to set the values, right? So let's find out first. Oop. Cool. Just make sure I hit that first, right? So this is not the new page, so I know I'm on the edit. Nice. What happens when I hit create that book? I should hit the binding, right? Why did I not hit the binding? And how come this didn't update?
Because
Yeah?
it gets saved properly.
No.
Or because we didn't have a patch method yet.
No, the patch method exists. It's totally here. Here's what happened. It tried to go to something called patch with this book ID, right? The nice thing is that it actually did something in that it got me to the book with the correct ID. The weird thing about HTTP is that it only understands two types of requests, get and post, right? I mentioned that during the video. Did you hear it? So it only ever understands two. So if I want to do anything besides get and post, I have to play a Trixies on my browser, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this hidden, right? The name that I want to put under it is, it's going to be some method. And what's that method though? That method is going to be a patch. So I'm going to overwrite this original post method. So I'm going to post to this, but it's going to get here and it's hidden. It's a sneaky, right? And it's going to go, method is actually going to be patch. And so that's how I'm going to get around. Yes, you like these like terrible voices? The Dayquil is kicking in. It's going to actually do a patch to this underscore method. Unfortunately, that means that the internet is broken, right? I hate to break it to you. The internet is broken. It is just barely strung together, and everything is hacked. Hacked horribly. That being said, I have to be able to actually overwrite these methods, right? So I don't really remember how to write it, and I took notes on it. But if I ever forget, actually, let's see what happens. Okay, these params are getting out of control. Ready? A little bit of this, right? Yeah.
So in this case, you have no choice but.
Oops. You have to hack it. Everything on the internet's hacked. Think about it, right? If there's only a get and post, how do you do anything else?
Wait, so
This hidden hack is like obnoxiously common everywhere. It's a sneaky.
There's really no other way.
why wouldn't they just make like other shit? I mean, other stuff. Why wouldn't they just make other methods, like a patch method? Like, how hard?
That is very good, and that is for the Mozilla developer folks to take care of.
So you have to hide stuff in your logo.
Yeah, it's a sneaky, right? So let's do it. What happens here? Doesn't know that ditty. Very weird. It looks like it wanted it to post, but I wanted it to hit patch. Right? Interesting. So let's see. I want to like Sinatra. I want to set method. I want to override it. Because I'm in overdrive. I'm in overdrive. I'm just going to hit command method override. Okay, that didn't work. Where are you? Why can't I hit command F? No! Oh, here it is. Method override. It's a rack method. It does override. I have to set it. Okay. These docs aren't great. I'll show you how to do it. Set method override to true. So now let's go back a little bit of this. Oh no, just kidding. What's this one? All right. So sneaky. Let's just make sure it's good. All right. Cool. So now it's hanging, which means I finally hit my patch. So now I'm here. So what is @book? Did I find it? No, just kidding. I need to make @book. So what do I do? What is params? So I can just find my book, right? So book.find, right? With the params of ID. Yeah? I probably need this though. Blue. Cool. So I probably want B equals to what I just put in. So B dot what? Update. I want to update, and I want to change the title to params title, and I want to change the snippet to params snippet. Does that make sense? And true, right? This right here is where it touches the database.
That's the
This looks very familiar, no?
that's the SQL query.
Yeah, sneaky, right? Notice how it didn't change anything else because it probably identified that the title didn't change. So it only made one update. And I can always pass it in, no big deal, MBD. Right? Yes, Chris.
Maybe this is getting benefit, but everything is just getting most methods. If someone is sending just a basic request to your server, they can override whatever command when they post to it. If you give them the
Yes.
So what can you do about that?
We will get into that in Rails. Rails will protect you. Sinatra, you'll have to do a lot of your own security, which is why we love Rails. We'll get to that later, yeah?
So,
Huh?
so you're telling me that because of this weird thing with there's only these two methods, because you have to do hidden methods, people, if you don't have adequate security, can just hide their own methods and requests into like getting posted.
Sorry, say again?
So you're saying that people can just like you agree that people can just hide methods into their like requests and then like
Oh, yeah. So dirty.
You do stuff like around. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's really dirty. And then we want to redirect, right? But where do we want to redirect to? You probably want to redirect to the one we just updated it so you could see, right? And so how do we do that? A little old school Ruby interpolation? Yeah?
I have a question. So right there when you say book, are we not doing the at symbol?
We just declared it.
Yes. So here's the thing. Why would we not need the at symbol here? Because remember, the at symbol passes it to a view, right? When I redirect to books with the book ID, I'm hitting here. All of a sudden, at book gets recreated, and it's going to hit show. In a redirect, I'm not passing this into this. Otherwise, I would have just done a re-render. I would have rendered show here. Like, I could have done this. Instead, I'm choosing to redirect. Right? I'm choosing to redirect because I always want this value, and then I want to show. So the redirect is just going to point me to right here, make a new GET request. Yeah? Sorry about that weird error. If it happens to you, at least you'll know that it's totally normal. It is entirely random. I don't think that they have been able to solve it in like the years that I've been working with Sinatra. So when that happens, just call one of us over and we'll square you away. It is really bizarre. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. That's all I got for you if there's no other questions.
And you're